hope you all are doing well, of course, and always learning. Looking forward to some more intellectual dispositions. Um, so, today I will be resuming my discussion on Steven Pinker's book, Enlightenment Now. So, if you guys remember, I did a discussion, or perhaps like an overview actually, of the first chapter of this book. And now we're going to be talking about the second chapter, which is called the Entro, Evo, and Info. So Entro resembles entropy, Evo represents evolution, and Info as in information. So those concepts, Entro, Evo, and Info, are the concepts that define the narrative of the Enlightenment, or the Enlightenment ideals of human progress. So in this chapter, Pinker summarizes quite a few points. Firstly, he talked about the law of entropy or disorder. And by entropy, he was referring mostly to entropy in relation to human affairs. I'm also going to be discussing the Enlightenment so-called self-organization, or systems like institutions, that cater to this, to the method of combating entropy itself. So, first and foremost, the law of entropy is originally emerged from the 19th century physician Ludwig Boltzmann, who argued that in the second law of thermodynamics, in an isolated system, entropy never decreases because isolated systems represent molecules that do not interact with the environment. So, for example, it is that thermodynamical system. It visualizes, it enables us to visualize the process in which usable energy in the form of a difference in temperature between two bodies is inevitably dissipated as heat flows from the warmer to a colder body. So, this concept of entropy is related with heat, temperature, movement, and the differences in speed. You see? So, a simpler example is like a cup of coffee cooling down, or a bowl of pasta, which I just had, turns from a warmer temperature to a cooler temperature if I leave it in the kitchen for a long time. But there is also another way of interpreting this concept of entropy, which is the entropy in relation to human affairs, or social politics. And this can be explained in everyday nuisances, or perhaps even the corroding of metal, like corroding or rusting of, let's just say, sterling silver or nickel. So, of course, ultimately, this actually is kind of just pretty much the same thing as saying that all things fall apart. Everything is meant to crumble. Everything is meant to dissipate. Or if you want to use a more crude phrase, any jackass can kick down a barn, but it takes a carpenter to build one. So, our bodies in itself, not just human affairs, our own physical bodies consist of improbable assemblies or molecules that maintain some sort of a coherent order, the way our organs function, the way that our respiratory system is in line with, our the functionality of the brain, transporting oxygen into the brain, or the consumption of food, where the esophagus transport that ball of food into the stomach for it to digest, leading to the forthcoming processes of releasing the feces from the body. But of course, so the aim of the of Pinker's discussion in this chapter is to acknowledge and give some sort of a calling um, towards things or institutions, organizations that are meant to cater and combat this sense of the law of entropy. Um, so at page 17, Pinker mentioned that from the Olympian vantage point, the second law defines the fate of the universe and the ultimate purpose of life, mind, and human striving to deploy energy and knowledge to fight back the tide of entropy and carve out refuge of beneficial order. And, well, of course, this also is correlated to his statement at page 19, where animals or any form of organism are open systems, predators, even the smallest prey, they or plants, they capture energy, they photosynthesize, they need the sun, or they need the energy from other animals to be consumed and stored into their bodies for them to be able to regain their energy, physical and perhaps mental even energy. So, in a sense, entropy is also related to integrity because, to a certain extent, our striving also, ironically, relies on the dissipation or the sacrifice of, or utilizing some sort of a more inferior asset in order to better ourselves, in order to contribute to our betterment as human beings. And this is why it conflicts with people who are perhaps against, against the consumption of meat. So they, veganism perhaps would be a good example why they realize that consuming the energy of iron from animals would, well, it would give them, it would give strength, of course, but perhaps there is a better way to not keep on contributing to this law of entropy, because entropy of animals, perhaps, even though technically they're still consuming, like plant-based products, because they're because it relies on the concept of integrity itself, like what is it from, people's way of thinking have developed many years, like where animal sacrifices, and I'm not just saying like mistreating animals by, like bashing them, but I mean like even consumption to them, to these vegans, I guess, as an example, would be considered, yeah, a contribution to entropy in itself, entropy of these organisms. And it's not fair for them, just for the sake of bettering, of developing, the physical, the physique of human beings, right? So anyway, the law of entropy has also been sort of debated, because a lot of scholars and scientists have looked at it from their scientific point of view. But how does it work for people who rely on teleological or cosmological arguments? Would how does the, like, would such a sophisticated system of replication, molecule replication, like the passing down of DNA from our parents to the children, or the process of self-organization, like the structure of the planets that surround the Milky Way, the galaxy, and the improbable placements and configurations of our organs, and the flesh. Um, is it possible, like for those sophisticated systems or physical structures to be created by a divine entity? Well, more so it is for the religious people to believe. Um, so we mustn't deny that, in a sense, humans and animals are born exploiters. Now, this is actually a pretty big claim because there are people who inherently believe that we can combat our sense of exploitation. And when I say exploitation, I don't mean like literally our need to abuse other people. This is very different. Like we can choose to be to cooperate, or for example, like the process of colonization, let's just say, or international trade, like people rely on, like the government of Australia relies a bit of from China to transport their goods, the cheap goods, to Australia. And it's not through the methods of abuse, or some sort of threat. Like it's not like the um, it's not like the government actually made a pact by saying that if you don't give us this supply, we're gonna do something. We're gonna harm you, or take your soldiers away for us, or something like that. Because well, a lot of it happened in the past. But I agree that well, we can be exploiters, but we have the option to not be abusive. So in this sense, exploitation, I think, from what Pinker is really saying, doesn't mean that we have to be one, that we have to be engaging in malevolence in order to obtain the benefit or to gain integrity for ourselves. So the first section discussed just mostly on the concept of entropy itself and what it constitutes. And now I will be going deeper by describing and elaborating the method of processing information and distributing information as a method of combating entropy. So we can see this in evolutionary biology, where the sequence of bases in a DNA molecule correlates with the sequence of the amino acids in the body of, well, animals or even human beings. The connection of input and output neurons in the brain to process visual reality to comprehend information received from sense organs. So, to put that simply in lay terms, for example, I'm looking at the camera now. I'm a person, I'm a physical reality, and I see that as a visual reality. I mean, as I visualize that thing, and I understand that it's made out of lens, it's a camera, and I understand that it's not going to interact with me when I'm talking to it. But I process it in my brain, using my brain as a sense organ. I understand that the lens will not respond to me, but it will capture my voice as an input, for it to store the information of my voice and my face and everything that surrounds me. So there's a sense of cause and effect happening here, of course. So what's the cause? The camera, and the effect is me processing that information, that visual reality, of me talking to the camera. But yeah, and we're gonna discuss how this relates to animals. So actually, this cause and effect, the connection of input and output neurons, actually allows an animal to resist entropy and capture energy. So it's like the chasing and fleeing. the action of chasing and fleeing, kinetic energy. So animals can understand, for example, like a gazette. A gazette can understand that it's being chased by a lion, let's just say. So it senses an incoming predator based on perhaps the figure of the lion itself, if the predator is close, or if it can hear footsteps from the lion from a distance. So this chasing, it automatically, that information tells the brain of the gazette to flee. And well, the brain perhaps correlate with the instincts. It works together with the instincts, and then it tells the gazette to flee from its predator because it's a threat. Visual reality enables the physical entity to resist entropy from the perceiving of visual information itself. And this, of course, like, it's always goal directed. Like, sometimes when like an animal flees for a very straightforward reason, because they would flee from perhaps a threat, a physical threat, having the predator being present there. But for humans, it's a bit more complicated. We can run away, in a sense, like we psychologically threatened, not always physically, but we are psychologically threatened, and we run away from our problems or our affairs that we don't want to take responsibility of, or perhaps affairs that are being imposed onto us. The last major point that I'd like to bring up is the invention of norms, institutions, and language. Now, I've elaborated on this many, many times, but as explained by Thomas Jefferson, he who receives an idea from me receives instruction himself without lessening mine. So, in a sense, when somebody receives an idea from Jefferson himself, he receives instructions by... the other person receives the instructions from Jefferson without lessening his. So that is the integrity of a physical entity from the providence of information. I'm not sure if providence is a good word, really, but what I mean is by the providing of information as a subject that would constitute or cultivate our integrity. And that is one of the core ideals of the Enlightenment. Integrity from knowledge. And of course, language is invented from writing, literacy, the printing press, of course, like Martin Luther. There's a big advantage during the Protestant Reformation, where Martin Luther printed perhaps the monks or his followers printed copies of the Bible, in many languages, in Greek, Latin, German, not just Latin, because Latin was originally what the Roman bishops or the popes would read. Rules also help people evolve. And the democratic ideal in the Enlightenment allows information to be processed in a more cooperative, discrete manner. So anyway, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed my video. I'm sorry if the lighting's a little bit dark. It's daytime, and for some reason it's making my camera look dark even though I've turned on the lights. It's a bit dim. But yeah, thank you, and I hope to see you next time. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Peace out.